Welcome back to Watch Party Recaps. Today we have a 2019 action drama movie called 1917. Warning, spoilers ahead, get ready and enjoy. In the First World War, which comprised mostly of trench warfare, soldiers had to charge out of the trenches into a hail of bullets and shrapnel and poison gas. They were easy targets and casualties were enormously high. Between opposing army trenches, the area was called no man's land. A muddy terrain that was littered with dead animals, dead bodies, barbed wires and wreckage from exploding shells. Before telecommunications became common, one of the most dangerous jobs during that war was being a messenger. Their roles in the war were important, because a single message could save the lives of thousands of troops. Today's story we witness what soldiers had to go through to deliver such message. Here's what happens. In 1917, during the First World War, Corporals Schofield and Blake are sleeping under a tree when they are awoken by a sergeant, who asks Blake to pick another soldier and report to his superior. Blake grabs Schofield and as they walk, Blake reads his mail. Schofield didn't get any but doesn't seem to mind. Looking at the soldiers passing in the trench they've entered, they reckon something is up. Wondering what they've been asked to do, Blake asks his sergeant about the big push because Blake thought they would be home by Christmas. He tells them that it isn't the big push they think is coming. They arrive at General Ehrenmore's quarters. He assigns them on an extremely important mission. He wants them to cross over former German territory, who have retreated, and they need someone to get an extremely important message to Colonel Mackenzie, who is chasing after the retreating Germans to finish them off. Ehrenmore explains that this is a mistake. The Germans are actually luring the British troops into a trap, and they will be decimated. Ehrenmore has picked Blake because his brother is in the regiment that will be attacking, and this mission puts his life on the line. Blake, determined to save his brother, agrees instantly to the extremely dangerous mission. Blake and Schofield are given a map, torches, grenades and rations. They're given instructions to go through the trenches to the York's regiment and give a note to Major Stevenson, who holds the line at the shortest span of no man's land, where Blake and Schofield will need to cross. Blake and Schofield leave immediately. On the way, Schofield expresses his doubts, saying they should wait until dark to cross no man's land. Blake disagrees, saying they would waste too much time. Schofield then tells him the last time they were told the Germans had gone, it didn't end well. Eventually, they find the York's regiment, but are told that Stevenson is dead, and Lieutenant Leslie is now in command. They find Lieutenant Leslie and give him their orders to cross. Leslie thinks it's an insane idea and mocks their belief that the Germans have gone, saying it's a trap. But gives them instructions and directions on how to get through the former German line anyway. Before stepping out, he gives them a flare gun and says to signal if the Germans are actually gone. Blake and Schofield make their way through the empty battlefield full of barbed wire and muddy trenches that are littered with carcasses and corpses. On their way to the German line, Schofield punctures his hand on some razor wire, and both hide from two planes flying over them, not knowing whose side they on. Then the two make their way through a massive crater where some wire's been destroyed and arrive at the German trenches, which they find it's true, that they left and abandoned the line. While creeping through the deserted trench, Schofield wraps his punctured hand, then they find a smoldering brazier indicating that the Germans aren't long gone. They go underground into a dugout and find the German barracks empty and crawling with rats. Blake finds a tripwire, and before they can react, one of the rats crosses the wire, causing a huge explosion that buries them underground. Schofield is fully buried, but Blake manages to wake him up and get him out so they can flee before the entire barracks collapses. Once out, Schofield angrily asks Blake why he picked him to go on this mission. Blake explains he thought they were just going on a food run, he never thought it would be this mission. Then Blake fires the flare off, signaling to Lieutenant Leslie that they made it. They continue onward, finding a green area. Schofield tells Blake they'll likely get a medal for this. Blake says it will be nice since Schofield lost his previous one, but Schofield tells him he didn't lose it but swapped it for wine. Blake is shocked he didn't take the medal home, but Schofield tells him he hated leaving before. The two come upon cherry blossoms, which Blake knows because his mother has an orchard where he and his brother picked cherries. They then find a house in the field, which they check but find no one inside. Schofield finds a cow and a bucket of fresh milk, which he fills his canteen with. The two soldiers witness a dogfight in the air between three planes, which ends with the British shooting the German plane down, and it heads straight for them. They run out of the way as it crashes and pull the burning German pilot out of the cockpit. Schofield suggests putting him out of his misery, but Blake tells Schofield to get him water. As he does, the German brutally stabs Blake in the gut. Schofield shoots the German and desperately tries to get Blake patched up and move him to get some help, but it's too late. Blake begins bleeding out and tells Schofield to write to his mother and tell her he wasn't scared. Before Blake dies, Schofield promises him he will, and tells him he will finish the mission. Shortly after, more British soldiers arrive. Captain Smith tells Schofield that they are passing through and can take him closer to his destination. He advises Schofield not to dwell on the loss of his friend. Schofield rides in the back of a truck with some rowdy soldiers. When the truck gets stuck in the mud, he tries to get the other soldiers to help push, but they aren't in a rush. He then pleads with them and tells them he's in a hurry. They all agree and push the truck together. Once they get back in, a curious soldier asks him where he's going, and he tells them his mission. Schofield gets dropped off at a river that he must cross to get to his destination, and he comes under gunfire. He manages to race into the building where the shooter is, and the two end up shooting each other. Schofield kills the German, but he is hit in the helmet and knocked unconscious. When he awakes, it is night, and the town is lit by fires. He dodges gunfire as he races through the burning town, eventually stopping to hide in a building where he finds Laurie, a woman who only speaks French, hiding in fear. Schofield speaks French and tells her he's not German. She tends to some of his wounds and reveals there's a baby she's watching over. Schofield gives it some of his milk, and Laurie explains she has no idea who its parents are. She begs him to stay with them, but he explains he must continue his mission. He goes back out into the firefight, having to kill and flee in order to survive. Being shot at, he dives off a cliff into a river, where he almost drowns. Eventually, the river calms, and he reaches land, where he breaks into sobs. He keeps going until he hears singing and sees a group of soldiers sitting around listening to another sing. He sits and listens, then tells a soldier he's looking for the second. The soldier tells him that's them and that they're following the larger group. Schofield runs forward into the trenches, begging someone to listen to him not to go forward with the attack, which no one will. Unfortunately, it's too late, the battle is starting, and the first wave is sent. Schofield realizes the only way to reach Mackenzie fast enough is not to take the trenches, but instead run sideways across the active battlefield, which he does. He survives and gets back into the trenches and finds Colonel Mackenzie, who at first refuses to listen to him, in full disbelief and insisting they are about to defeat the Germans. Schofield pleads with him to read the letter, which he finally does. Sounding disappointed, he then orders his men to stand down. Schofield goes to the medical tents looking for Blake's brother. He eventually finds him, unharmed. Schofield breaks the bad news to him about his brother and gives him some of his belongings that he took with him. Blake is devastated but pulls himself together and tells Schofield to get some food for himself. Schofield asks if he can write to their mother, and he agrees. He tells Blake that his brother saved his life. Then Blake thanks him for being there with his brother and the two shake hands. Feeling relieved and weary, Schofield goes and finds a tree to sit under. He takes out a photo of his wife and children, looks at them, then closes his eyes to rest. If you like what you have seen, please leave a like and subscribe. Here's another video.